The Queensland Faith Communities Council is delighted to welcome Dr. Katie Hassel of the Bahá'í community as our speaker at our 2020 Women of Faith dinner, which was held on the 8th of September. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, our dinner was an online event. 33 women came together from 10 diverse faith communities to listen to the following presentation and then share our experiences in virtual breakout rooms. Our guest speaker for the evening, Dr. Katie Hassel from the Gold Coast, spoke of her Bahá'í faith and of coming to live in Australia and in various other places after leaving Iran. Katie became a Bahá'í in 1985. She therefore has much insight into both the multi-faith and the multicultural world in which we live. And we pick her up at that point. So welcome, Katie.
I completed my education. I got degrees in mathematics and science and a PhD in sociology. I married an Australian, and as a consequence of our work and involvement in the Baha'i faith, we ended up living in many countries, including Papua New Guinea, Switzerland, Fiji, and New Zealand before returning to Australia, where we now live in Gold Coast. My interfaith activities was mostly done during my 6 years in Fiji, where I was the secretary for Interfaith Search Fiji, which was just an amazing experience. Now, there are three aspects of the Baha'i faith that attracted to me, and it sort of structures my engagement within it. The first is, many of you may know already, it's this belief in, that Baha'is believe in one God as the creator of one people and the source of all religions. According to Baha'i teachings, God has sent a succession of divine messengers known as manifestations of God to educate and guide humanity based on the exigencies of the time. And it was this concept of a continuous progressive revelation by one God that appealed to me 35 years ago and started me on a path to investigate and eventually become a Baha'i. This idea answered to a very deep and unspoken dissatisfaction that I felt growing up with religion. The second aspect is the Baha'i interpretation of the past and its vision for the future. As a Baha'i, I understand that past is a progression of humanity through various stages from childhood to adolescence to maturity, and each stage sort of gives birth to various forms of unity, from family to clan, tribes, and nations, and ultimately to a global unity. In this new context of a globalized world, what Baha'i faith says that it's needed is this new patterns of thought, structures, and institutions that embody the oneness of humanity and are conducive to building a just and lasting global peace. This is exactly what defines my identity as a Baha'i. And it's that is why Baha'is are so attracted to these interfaith groups, because it's one of the most effective ways to bring about this new pattern of thought. Baha'u'llah promises that this future is inevitable. And it's this vision that sort of helps me to understand that this current turmoil that we see, confusion, the associated suffering, the seemingly chaotic conditions in the world, these are as birth pangs of a global society as we move from adolescence to maturity, learning ways to build structures, new patterns of thought, that it's based on this oneness of humankind. So far from feeling frustrated or impotent about forces that seem to be out of control, this vision gives me an optimistic view of the future. In addition, a very strong motivation to want to contribute towards building it. Now, the third and final aspect of the faith are the teachings to do with a twin duty of worship and service. This latter provides a pathway towards this individual and societal transformation that we want. Baha'u'llah tells us that we are created noble, that our merit lies in acquiring virtues and selflessly serving people around us. Worship through reciting of obligatory prayer, meditation, the study of the sacred scriptures, fasting, and efforts to improve our conduct through daily reflection help us develop this personal, loving relationship with God and to acquire spiritual virtues. These virtues show themselves and are themselves enhanced as we actually interact in the world and serve others. Now, in the Baha'i faith, there's no clergy. So as we as individuals have the responsibility to attend to this spiritual growth for ourselves and to organize ourselves to be trying to at least selflessly and for the sake of God, serve the society around us. In this work, we are not alone. So our spouse, children, members of the community, the Baha'i institutions, as well as like-minded people in general, each giving and receiving love, guidance, and assistance and encouragement. At a personal level, the daily cycle of prayer, reading of scripture, meditation, reflection gives a rhythm to my daily life. At a family level, my husband and I try to apply the Baha'i teachings on how a family should function to ensure that we consult as family so that we can create a supportive and environment that it's supportive, it's spiritual, and it helps to develop a moral compass for our children so that they also in turn grow to want to serve God and to acquire spiritual development. At the community level, we also participate in a variety of spaces for worship, as well as engage in various community building efforts, that is both within the community or through various social actions outside of Baha'i community. In spaces for collective worship, Baha'is often get together, and Baha'is and their friends, and usually the prayer is in the form of reading of sacred scripture, and there's no rituals, just at home. I myself participate in a weekly interfaith devotion in Gold Coast, which is via Zoom these days. And this gives me the opportunity to be exposed to sacred writings of other religions. This is held on Sundays, and I try not to miss it. Another area that I'm involved in the Baha'i community is as chair of one of their sectors. This role includes chairing a community meeting, which is held at the first day of Baha'i month, known as the Baha'i Feast. So every month, this sort of regulates how community meets at least once in 19 days at a feast. And 19 days is the Baha'i month. The feast serves three purposes. It's a devotional, administrative, and social. It provides an opportunity for the community to consult on its affairs and often lead to the emergence of small groups engaged in action to improve the life of the communities and the society around them. Feast is the only space where Baha'is only attend. Everything else, it's open to everybody else. The pathway to worship and service is open, whether they're Baha'is or not, to everybody. The Baha'i community offers coordinated study programs aimed at empowering people of all ages to engage in pursuing their own spiritual development through prayer, education, and service. Currently, I and some of my friends, Baha'is and also people from different religions, are engaged in several study programs. It takes up quite a few days in the week to help us apply the teachings of Baha'u'llah to build capacity so that we can initiate and engage in particular acts of service. After one such systematic study many years ago, of the teachings of Baha'u'llah on moral education of children, I became involved, and I'm still involved, in running moral education classes for children of my friends, neighbors, my own children when they were young. This area is very dear to me, and I find that in a world where joy and innocence of childhood can be so easily overwhelmed by aggressive pursuit of materialistic ends, the moral and spiritual education of children assumes a vital importance. So this has been a very quick summary of how the faith provides me with vision, motivation, and a pathway to work with others to establish patterns of thought and action based on the oneness of God and humanity. So I end by thanking you again for this opportunity. It was an amazing exercise to reflect and summarize the impact of the faith. And I only spoke of what I'm actually engaged in now. So I look forward to getting you know better later tonight in the meeting groups. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Katie. That was lovely. I'm hoping that what people would have gotten out of that was the emphasis on individual worship, but also service. And I think that rings true to most of us here within our own faith groups, that yes, there's time for personal prayer and there's worship as a community, but there's also that sense of service, of giving back, and that came through very strongly. And also the connectedness, you know, belonging to a faith gives you a connection with people that makes life so much richer, that those who don't have that connection can so easily fall into areas of aloneness, of depression. I'm not saying that we are immune to depression, but I think we all benefit from the connections that we make through our faith groups. Katie, that was lovely. Thank you very much for that. There was a lot in what you said, actually. I took some notes. There was a lot in what you said, and I'm hoping that it was a benefit to everyone who's listening. So thank you.